Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of my podcast, Is Breakfast Included? How's everyone doing? Great to hear. A few weeks ago, I was downtown. I went into Three Links. I just kind of wandered in there. I had something else to do, but I walked in and they were just about to screen a documentary about the Dallas punk scene called Everything Is A-OK. I didn't have anything to do, so I sat down and watched it, and boy, am I glad I did. This documentary is so cool. If you're a fan of punk music, particularly Dallas punk music, and even if you're not a fan, the stories in this documentary are amazing. Justin Powers, who is my guest today, started this back in 2013. He finished it. He released it. It takes it way back to the 70s. The Nervebreakers opening up for the Sex Pistols in Dallas. Takes it all the way to the 2010s. Stickman with a Ray Gun talks about Loco Gringos, Pumpin Ethyl. All these stories are really cool. And I found myself, who's really not a big fan of punk music, but wanting to dive into it and figure out what I missed. So it was a pretty cool conversation. It's very short. Justin lives in Georgia. We tried to make this happen, and we did. And I think you'll enjoy it. The documentary is called Everything Is A-OK. Check it out. Well, all right, man. I'm going to get started. Would you tell everybody who you are?
Yeah, I am Justin Powers. I recently made a documentary about Dallas punk that Bernie saw recently at the Three Link screening.
Yeah, and the documentary is called Everything Is A-OK.
Yes. It came from one of the Pumpin Ethyl songs.
Okay, right on, man. How long has this documentary been in the works?
Well, I started it in like 2013, and before I had wanted to make a documentary, a Dallas punk documentary, and I had heard about another one that was being made at the time called DFW Punk, and this was like a few years before I started it, and then later I saw it, and it wasn't really the same thing that I was going to be doing. So I went on and finally started doing my documentary.
Okay. And I think I jumped the ship a little. I was going to ask you, were you into filmmaking before this, or is this just kind of a labor of love?
No, I've been into filmmaking forever, and I've made a couple like really low, like no budget, like zombie movies and some like super no budget, like, cheesy horror films. And but I'd wanted to make a documentary for a long time
about the Dallas punk scene.
Yeah, well, I'd want to be. Yeah. First, I kind of I grew up in Arkansas, and as a teenager, I was like obsessed with the Butthole Surfers and stuff, and I loved like Texas punk rock. And then I moved to Dallas in my early 20s, and I had wanted to kind of make a documentary, a Texas punk documentary, but then I thought I should kind of learn the process of the documentary filmmaking.
Yeah.
So I decided to do something more local, and then finally I started it. Then it took a long time to finish.
So you kind of started the beginnings was in 2013, and then once you realized that you could make this movie that you wanted to, that it wasn't going to be the same as the other one, how long did it take, like compiling all the interviews, and was everyone on board when you approached them about it?
Yeah, like most people were. A few people were weird and didn't want to have anything to do with it, but most people were. I did a lot of interviews, like probably like 60 or so. But and there's a million other people I would have wanted to get to, but it's I can only have it be so long. I wanted it to be a quick, exciting 90 minutes. It ended up being almost 2 hours. But I did cover a lot of ground in it,
Yeah, you did. I really enjoyed it. I found out a lot of things that I didn't know about it. And I just happened onto the screening by accident, but I'm glad I walked in that day.
Yeah, that's cool.
What does it take to make a documentary, man?
Man, a lot of time and organization. I started out and I shot a lot of interviews for like a year and a half. And then I started getting busy with like real work, and I kept putting it off. And then I had to move around for work for a while. And then and every now and then I would go visit back in Dallas like for Christmas, and then I would like shoot like a little bit more footage every couple years. I'd get a little bit more footage, and just as I went, trying to collect photos and flyers and archival footage and stuff. I had a lot. Then finally it got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm just going to have to finally just sit down and see if I can make it out of what I have at this point,
Mm-hmm.
So then it took about a year of going through cutting out usable footage out of the interviews, basically. And then about the time I finished that was whenever COVID happened, and I was out of work for 6 months. So basically I just like jumped on the opportunity when I wasn't going to be working for a few months to like just focus on that and get it done.
So once you had the time to do it like that, were you able to like speed it up?
Yeah. Before, I just could work on it every now and then when I had time. And then it took me like a full year of just when I could find time just to cut up the interviews to my usable footage. And then when I had all the time in the world where I was just literally sitting at home.
And so the documentary starts out, it takes it way back to the early days of the Dallas punk scene. What was the first punk show you saw when you came to Dallas?
When I came to Dallas, see, I grew up in Arkansas, moved to Dallas in my early 20s, but I had opened up like small like all ages DIY punk places in Fort Smith, Arkansas in the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had booked a lot of Dallas bands in Arkansas way before I ever moved to Dallas. So I'd seen a lot of Dallas bands like Riot Squad and Terminal Disgust and bands like that came up to Arkansas a lot, play up there. So, and I went to punk shows in Dallas a lot while I still lived in Arkansas. We would drive down to go to shows because we were in Arkansas, so we'd have to drive to bigger cities to see certain bands and stuff.
Yeah. And what was it about?
When I moved to Dallas, the Orbit Room had just closed. I'd been there to a show before, just visiting friends there. But then when I moved there, the Orbit Room shut down right before I got there, which was sad because that was they did a lot of really cool shows.
Yeah, yeah. What was it about the Dallas punk scene that, as opposed to any other punk scene, why did you just focus on this punk scene?
Well, I think because that's where all my connections were. I know everybody, and I could do it.
Yeah.
I know a lot about it. I booked bands before I even lived in Dallas, and then I booked shows in Dallas for a long time. And I ran a club downtown for a little while.
And what was that club?
The Red Blood Club at the very end of it.
Okay. Right there on Commerce.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe.
Like Mike Whittington was in the movie, and he opened it, and he had that place for probably 10 years and turned it into a punk club. And then after it closed down a couple of months later, my friend Brad, who was in Damage Case at the time and in Spasm 151, and he reopened the Red Blood Club right after Mike shut it down. And then we ran it for like 2 years. There was a stabbing at it at a Citizen Fish MDC show, and it kind of ruined the whole club at the end. But I chose not to put all that in the movie.
Yeah. that put a damper on it.
Yeah, I decided there was like a lot of stories like that, stabbings and different like dumb skinhead stuff that I got a lot of stories of that took place, but I chose just not to use any of that stuff and just keep it about positive stuff about the music. And
yeah, I know that there was they touched on the skinhead stories very briefly in it, but I noticed that that you kept it about the music and about the scene.
Yeah.
Man, there were a lot of great stories in that documentary. Is there any that you left out that you could talk about?
Well,
that you wish you could have put in?
Well, no, there's lots of random things. Like I have some footage I've been putting together, other like small videos, and putting it up on my YouTube channel. That's like, it's like there's a scene about another club called Unincorporated. That was a really cool club in Oak Cliff in the '90s, and I even edited it into the movie, but I had to take some stuff out just because it was getting over 2 hours.
Yeah, yeah.
So I put some of those segments on the YouTube, and there's other things I'm going to put together, but I've got a few up so far, like the famous story of Turner punching Kurt Cobain at trees.
Yeah. Funny,
I did a video.
That was my next question. That wasn't in the documentary. It seems like everyone I know was at that show.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't even ever planned on even using that story in there, just because I knew it wasn't going to have anything to do with like the clubs and bands that I was actually talking about.
Yeah.
But while I interviewed Turner and Jeff Lyles, the guy that booked the show, I went on and got their stories just so I could like put together like a video, just a YouTube video of it with their side of the story. You know, it's funny because the old videos of it that you would watch, it's like a bunch of just like Kurt Cobain fans like being very angry and hating the bouncer, you know. But then when you put a face on the bouncer and he seems real cool, you know, then like the same video, it's like, you know, it still has, you know, 50% of the people are like total Kurt Cobain freaks and just angry about the whole thing. But then 50% of the people commenting on it are also like, oh, Turner seems cool, man. He's in the right.
Yeah, I was going to say it. Plus, there's a certain way he tells the story that makes you want to root for him.
Right, yeah.
Once the documentary was released, did you get any pushback from anyone that was involved or anyone that you might have left out?
Well, I did see, you know, some people that felt like I guess they should have been in it. Their feelings were hurt, and they like, you know, I just saw some posts on social media about me leaving out certain people, or maybe they felt like they should have been in it. And some of those were bands, some old bands that I did plan on, like at the beginning when I made a list of everything I would like to touch on. A lot of that was on the list. Mm-hmm. Those bands, but then when it came down to it, in my interviews, I didn't have enough footage of people talking about that subject to make a segment about it, or I just wasn't going to have time. Otherwise, the thing would have been 4 hours long. You know, nobody would have sat through it.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned you made a couple of independent movies before this.
Yes,
they were. You said zombie movies.
Yeah. I made 2 different movies called Pot Zombies and Pot Zombies 2, More Pot, Less Plot. And the first one Trauma put out, and Lloyd Kaufman's in it. And but it's really cheesy and, you know, no budget, but I think it's funny. Some people are entertained by it if you like really bad movies, you know.
Yeah, I'll have to check them out. Any plans for what you're going to do next? Are you going to do another documentary, or?
I've been going through a million ideas this past year, trying to figure out what I do want to start a documentary, because I know it takes a long time. So I do want to just start it and start getting pieces of it together, but I haven't been able to actually make a real decision on stuff.
Yeah. So you haven't decided on what the topic of the documentary is going to be?
Yeah, no, not for sure.
Well, right on. And so you lived here in the mid-90s. Where are you now?
I'm in Georgia now. For real job, I'm a grip in the film industry. And so I've had to follow around work. Like I had to leave. I left Dallas to go to work in New York for a couple years because just work dried up there. The incentive went away. And so TV productions kind of left Texas for a while. I think it's getting kind of busy there again, but it dried up and I had to leave. So it's real busy in that industry in Atlanta.
Yeah. A lot of shows are filmed there.
Oh yeah.
Are you involved in the local music scene at all in Atlanta?
No, I've only been able to go to a couple of shows since I've left. I've been here for 2 years now. I've been to a couple of shows. The best boy I work with is in a local punk band, and he's got like a little record label he does, and it's pretty cool.
Have you ever thought about making an indie movie about one of the punk bands that you interviewed, or one of the punk bands around here?
Yeah, you mean like a documentary just about one of the bands?
Yeah.
Or like a movie based on
like a movie based.
Yeah, no, I haven't really.
I mean, a lot of these bands that came up in Dallas, it seems like they all have a great story behind them.
Yeah. Like Sticking with Ray Guns has a million crazy stories behind them. And I actually met Bobby Sox when I first moved to Dallas. It wasn't long before he died. And it was at Bar Soap. And I was in the back patio area. And he was drinking and telling me, and I had my video camera with me actually at the time. I recorded a lot of shows at that time period. It was it was before Pod Zombies. But anyway, I had a camera with me and I wanted to pull it out because he was telling me all these crazy stories. He basically told me, he was showing me all these knife wounds. Like he'd been stabbed like 7 times or something.
Wow.
But like not like somebody stabbed him 7 times. He like pissed off 7 different people enough to stab him once,
Yeah.
So he was showing me all these like stab wounds and telling me these stories. But I thought if I pulled my camera out that he would like stop talking.
Yeah.
But he had some crazy stories.
Yeah. Well, like you said, when COVID hit and it halted your work, it kind of benefited you to get this documentary finished.
Yeah, it really did. The timing of it was pretty crazy. The way I just got to a certain point in it where now I could actually start putting it together.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm gonna hate myself if I don't. Like,
How quick did it come together once you started?
Take this time. Well, I basically did it every night. Like as soon as my kids were laying down for bed, then I would get on. I would edit for like 5 to 8 hours every night, and it took me about 6 months to get it done.
Right on. Is it on any streaming platforms right now, or strictly a DVD?
Right. Like not yet. So far, I've just been selling DVDs and downloads off of our website, but it's about to start streaming on Troma now, which is the label that my old films were on, and they have like a streaming network. But I'm turning in all my legal paperwork to the middleman that gets your stuff on all the streaming platforms. It's called, it's like an aggregator.
Okay. Right on. So, man, I appreciate you taking the time. My podcast,
thank you.
Is called "Is Breakfast Included?"
Yes.
And I know we're talking over the phone right now, but if breakfast was included, Justin, what would you have?
Oh, I guess breakfast tacos.
That's the go-to around
breakfast
here.
Tacos. Yeah. That's one thing I hate. After I left Texas, like it's hard to find breakfast tacos in other places. Like in New York, there's not really breakfast tacos around.
I know, right?
And I mean, in Georgia, they're all it's not like it is in Texas.
No,
every breakfast is on a tortilla in Texas.
Flour tortilla.
I feel it should be. Yes. That's the way it's supposed to be.
Where can people find information about the movie, about you? Where can they find that on social media?
Well, there's the website for the documentary is dallasfilmdoc.com. And I guess on there's links to like my little production company is called Fringe Media that I do my other films under and this stuff. So I think that there's links on that website. I'm on Facebook and stuff too.
Cool. Do you have an Instagram for the movie?
No, not for the movie. We do have a Facebook page for the movie and a website.
Okay, cool. Cool, man.
Everything's A-OK. Dallas punk documentary. I think if you type that into Facebook, it'll come up the page.
Well,
and we've also been trying to get. I've sent a lot of DVDs to like video stores that are still in business in different states.
Yeah.
Trying to get the physical copies into stores and stuff, just because I think it's cool, you know.
Have you gotten any retail distribution?
No. One thing I am thinking about doing, though, I've talked to some other filmmakers that have other punk documentaries, and we're thinking about putting out like a Blu-ray, a triple feature Blu-ray.
Oh, okay.
With 3 like music documentaries on it, and then kind of split it up between the filmmakers and kind of distribute them that way.
Yeah, that's kind of like the old the punk bands used to do with the singles,
with compilations
like
and stuff.
Yeah. Well, there you are, staying in the vein of the punk rock industry.
Yes.
Right on, man. Well, man, I'm glad I walked in that day. I'm glad I caught your documentary. I knew a few people from it, and I was familiar with a lot of the bands, and I'm glad I got to meet you, man.
Thank you. Thanks for coming up and inviting me on here.
Yeah, man. Thank you for taking the time to do this. I know that we were supposed to do it a couple of weeks ago, and the universe intervened, but
yes,
we're doing it now, man.
Cool. Well, thanks, man.
All right, Justin. Have a great night.
All right, see ya.
All right. Right on. Justin Powers. It was a great conversation, man. I can't say enough about this documentary. You can go to the website, dallaspunkdoc.com, and either buy a digital download of it or a DVD. He sells merch. I encourage anyone who's listening who really likes music documentaries to check this out. First of all, it's really hard making a documentary. It's really hard self-financing and making a documentary. So, man, go support it. Support independent filmmakers, musicians, etc. All right, man, I am done. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you next week.